Imagine reading like a flawless, really ruthless clinical diagnosis of your midnight doom scrolling habit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like your obsession with your job title and that underlying just simmering burnout that I think we all have.
Right, absolutely.
And this diagnosis, it maps your brain chemistry perfectly, pinpointing exactly why you feel so fragmented, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you realize the psychological profile wasn't written by some Stanford neurobiologist last week.
Right.
It was written thousands of years ago in Sanskrit.
It really forces a complete reevaluation of what we consider, modern problems.
Yeah.
Because we tend to view our exhaustion and our distraction as byproducts of the digital age, like a software glitch.
Like we can just patch it with the right app or the perfect morning optimization protocol.
Exactly. But this material proves the fundamental human hardware, our susceptibility to craving and our struggle for clarity, it has remained entirely unchanged.
So for today's deep dive, we have a really fascinating source. It takes that ancient hardware and basically runs our current operating system right through it.
It does.
We're looking at a contemporary commentary. It's dated August 25th, 2026, on the Bhagavad Gita, specifically chapter 7, verses 19 and 20.
Right.
And the author essentially uses these verses as a diagnostic framework for the 21st century brain, which is just wild to read.
It's incredible.
So our mission today is to trace the profound arc that this text lays out, starting from what we can call the dopamine trap of chasing external validation, all the way to the culmination of true unifying wisdom.
And I think the stakes of this framework really cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
These two verses, they operate far beyond the realm of abstract theology or religious dogma.
Right, it's not just theory.
Exactly. They represent an incredibly rigorous mechanical dissection of human consciousness. Like they map out the precise anatomy of our suffering.
Yeah.
And they outline the genuinely difficult, highly unglamorous path to achieving true cognitive and emotional clarity.
Highly unglamorous is right. Because rather than starting at the summit of that path with, enlightenment,
Right.
the commentary suggests we start down in the mud of our daily routines.
The messy stuff.
Yeah, the messy stuff.
Yeah.
Most of us spend our days feeling at least mildly hijacked by our devices or our ambitions or anxieties.
Absolutely.
And verse 20 gives us the diagnosis for this exact state. The Sanskrit term it uses is hartajnana, which the source translates as wisdom or discernment, being carried away by diverse material cravings.
Carried away, yeah.
Let's unpack this because we know that chronic dopamine spikes, whether from social media or gambling or compulsive shopping,
Sure.
they hijack the prefrontal cortex.
They do.
We've seen the data on how the amygdala overrides our executive function. But seeing this neurobiological override described in an ancient scripture as discernment being literally carried away,
Yeah.
it's staggering.
The linguistic precision is what makes the correlation so powerful here, because in modern neurobiology, we talk about the dopamine baseline. When you constantly pursue diverse material cravings, so status, wealth, infinite novel information on a feed.
Just scrolling and scrolling.
Exactly. Your brain experiences massive spikes in phasic dopamine. But what follows is a drop below your normal baseline.
The crash.
The crash. And in that deficit state, your executive function isn't just a little tired. It is actively taken hostage by the brain's reward pathways.
Wow.
They're demanding another hit.
Yeah.
So your higher discernment, your ability to plan long-term, to regulate impulses, to act ethically.
The adult stuff.
Right. It is biologically blinded. It is quite literally carried away by the neurochemical deficit.
It perfectly describes that internal friction we all feel. Like you are sitting on the couch at 11:30 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
Your executive function is screaming that you need sleep to function tomorrow.
Just put the phone down.
Right, put it down.
Yeah.
But your thumb keeps swiping.
Yeah.
The knowledge of what is good for you is completely present, but it has zero authority.
None.
The craving has assumed total control of the nervous system.
And if our executive function is knocked offline by this constant dopamine chasing, nature abhors a vacuum.
Right, something has to fill it.
Exactly. Something has to step into that void to organize our reality and tell us how to survive. And the text argues that what steps in are Anya Devata.
And the direct translation of that is other minor deities.
Right, minor deities.
And the 2026 commentary takes this concept of minor deities and totally strips away the mythology.
Which I love.
Yeah, we aren't talking about statues in a temple here.
Yeah.
The author translates these as secular gods.
Secular gods.
The modern external proxies we elevate to organize our lives when our internal discernment is just gone.
Right.
And the text lists very specific secular gods, corporate titles, social media follower accounts, algorithmic beauty standards, stock portfolios, material prestige.
Because without an internal anchor, the human mind desperately needs an external proxy to dictate its value.
We just have to outsource it.
Exactly. We project omnipotence onto these secular gods. We believe a promotion to vice president or a massive surge in a crypto portfolio or going viral.
Right.
We think that will finally grant us existential safety.
Like we'll finally be okay.
Yes. We treat these metrics with the exact same terror and reverence and devotion that an ancient agrarian society might have directed toward a deity of the rain or the harvest.
Wow, that's a wild comparison, but it fits perfectly.
Our emotional baseline becomes completely tethered to their fluctuations.
But wait, let me push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because calling a 401k or a job title a minor deity, it feels like a stretch for some people.
I get that.
Isn't wanting financial security or career advancement, isn't that just basic biological survival? I mean, we have to eat, we need shelter.
Right.
The market dictates our access to those things. So paying close, even obsessive attention to your career trajectory or your investments isn't religious worship. It is just practical threat assessment in a really highly competitive capitalist system.
And the commentary addresses this exact tension. It's a great point. It does this by delineating the boundary between participation and surrender.
Okay.
Engaging with the economy, earning a living, navigating social hierarchies. Those are biological and practical necessities.
Right. You have to play the game to some extent.
Exactly. But the pathology begins when survival mechanics subtly shift into absolute existential identification.
Oh.
The word worship, in this context, it denotes where you place your ultimate sense of self.
I see.
So if your company downsizes and you lose your job, you face a practical crisis.
Right, you have to find new income.
Yes. But if you lose your job and your entire sense of self-worth, your identity, your right to exist collapses alongside it,
Wow.
then you have surrendered to a secular god. You haven't just lost a paycheck. You've been excommunicated from your source of meaning.
That is heavy. You've made the proxy the ultimate reality.
Exactly.
The tool for navigating the world becomes the actual master of your psychological state.
Yes.
And once you surrender to these secular gods, you have to appease them, you have to serve them.
Constantly.
The text refers to adopting rigid rites and rituals. The Sanskrit is tam niyama. And it says, we do this compelled by our own conditioned nature, bharaktya nyata svaya.
Right.
And the commentary maps this ancient behavioral loop directly onto the rituals of modern hustle culture.
We view ourselves as this hyper-rational secular society that has outgrown religious dogma.
Oh yeah, we're so advanced.
Right. But our daily routines are incredibly liturgical.
Liturgical, that's the perfect word.
The commentary points to the obsessive tracking of biological and productivity metrics.
Oh man, this is where it gets so real for me.
Right. The person waking up at 4:30 a.m. to hit the perfectly timed cold plunge.
Yep.
Drinking a scientifically optimized green powder.
Right.
Logging their sleep architecture on a smart ring and driving themselves to achieve inbox zero.
It's a religion.
It is. These are not just health or productivity choices. When they become compulsive, they're a liturgy performed to appease the gods of optimization and status.
It is literally the modern equivalent of offering a sacrifice at the altar before the sun comes up.
Yes.
And if the smart ring says your recovery score is low,
The drive.
or you miss the cold plunge, the entire day is psychologically ruined, you feel out of favor with the universe.
You often perform the sacrament.
Exactly. You feel guilty.
And the tragic irony the author emphasizes is the immense cognitive dissonance embedded in these rituals.
Oh, so.
We subject ourselves to this exhausting perpetual hustle because we mistake the temporary dopamine relief of completing the ritual for lasting inner peace.
Oh, wow.
You clear the inbox, you close the fitness rings, and for about 10 minutes you feel a sigh of relief.
Right. You think I did it. I'm safe.
The secular god is satisfied, but it is an incredibly fragile peace.
Because the next morning, the rings reset to zero.
Exactly.
The inbox fills up again. The ritual just demands to be repeated endlessly.
Precisely due to what the text calls our unexamined conditioned nature.
Right.
We rarely step back to audit the root cause of the exhaustion.
We just run faster on the wheel.
We simply follow the cultural conditioning. We double down on the belief that if we just hustle harder, track more data points, accumulate a slightly higher title, we will eventually cross an invisible finish line into lasting safety.
But there is no finish line.
None. We are trapped in a biological and psychological loop driven entirely by subconscious programming.
So the diagnosis in verse 20 is really stark. We are operating with kidnapped prefrontal cortexes.
Yeah.
Surrendering our existential safety to volatile external proxies, like the stock market, the algorithm,
Right.
and performing exhausting dogmatic rituals of productivity just to feel a fleeting sense of worth.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It really is. So if chasing these proxies creates an inescapable deficit state, what actually fills the void?
Well,
Verse 19 offers the antidote, but the 2026 commentary makes it very clear that this cure actively antagonizes modern sensibilities.
it really does. In a culture heavily conditioned by the promise of immediate gratification, like,
Right.
Optimization, seamless user experiences.
Everything on demand.
Right. The true antidote described here is radically, almost offensively slow.
We treat wisdom like it is a software update we can just install over a long weekend at a retreat.
Yes.
Like we want the 10-minute meditation hack for CEO-level focus.
The quick fix.
We want the neurotropic supplement that grants serenity. But the source text translates the opening of verse 19, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, as after many lifetimes of spiritual maturation, the person of wisdom surrenders unto me.
many lifetimes.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting because the commentary focuses heavily on this long horizon of compounding wisdom.
The explicit rejection of the biohack mentality is central to this commentary. Deep cognitive rewiring, the dismantling of profound subconscious conditioning and genuine emotional resilience, they simply cannot be induced overnight.
Right, you can't life hack your way out of the human condition.
Exactly. Whether one interprets many lifetimes literally within the framework of reincarnation,
Sure.
or metaphorically as the numerous distinct phases, ego deaths, and transformations within a single human life,
Yeah.
the core mechanism is time and friction.
It is the difference between a caffeine patch and evolutionary adaptation.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Like a biohack forces a temporary state change. You take a pill, you feel focused. You do a breathing exercise, you feel calm.
Right.
But you haven't fundamentally altered your underlying architecture.
No, you're just manipulating the surface.
The text is pointing to the slow, agonizing hardware evolution itself.
And that evolution requires integrating immense friction.
What does that look like in practice?
It necessitates enduring failures, processing profound grief, sitting with humiliation, and engaging in relentless self-inquiry without reaching for a secular god to numb the discomfort.
So no doom scrolling when you feel humiliated.
Exactly. The psychological structures that keep us trapped in verse 20, they're dense.
Yeah.
They were built over decades of cultural and biological conditioning. Untangling them is a slow compounding process of shedding illusions.
It's like geological pressure.
Yes.
And when that pressure finally creates the diamond, when someone actually commits to that long horizon and begins to break free from the dopamine loop, what does the resulting consciousness actually look like?
This is where it gets really beautiful.
The text introduces a monumental shift in worldview in the second half of verse 19.
Vasudeva Sarvam Iti.
The realization that the supreme divine consciousness, or the fundamental ground of being, is all that exists. Everything is unified consciousness.
The author points out that this realization totally shatters the framework of tribal dualistic religion.
Which is how most of us were raised to think about the sacred.
Right. Dualism operates on a strict premise of separation and hierarchy. The divine is elevated and distant, while humanity is mundane and flawed.
Or the divine is geographically confined, right, like to specific sanitized spaces.
Yes, an altar, a church, a mosque, while the rest of the world is secular territory.
But the compounding wisdom we are talking about, it removes the quarantine around the sacred.
It does.
The sage perceives the exact same fundamental consciousness expressing itself universally.
Everywhere.
And the commentary provides very grounding, mundane examples of where this unified consciousness is perceived. It lists the stranger on the street, the silent space of pure awareness, the elegant mathematics of science nature, and the challenging family member.
That inclusion is deliberate and crucial.
Okay, let's talk about that because our conditioned ego operates like an autoimmune disease.
That is so true.
It constantly scans the environment for threats to our identity.
Always on guard.
So when you sit down at Thanksgiving and that one family member makes a passive-aggressive comment about your career,
Or we've all been there.
your secular god,
Right.
your career, Your ego misidentifies that harmless string of words as a lethal pathogen.
Right, it feels like a physical attack.
The amygdala fires, the stress hormones flood your system and you attack back. It is a total collision of two terrified egos. So how does recognizing Vasudeva Sarvam Aditi, this unified consciousness, actually stop that immune response in real time?
Because recognizing the unified consciousness allows you to see the source code of the other person separate from their buggy software.
Oh, I like that. The source code versus the software.
Right. When you operate from the hijacked state of verse 20, you view that family member entirely through the lens of their irritating behavior.
You just see the passive aggression.
You define them by their conditioning. But when you achieve the clarity of verse 19, you recognize that the fundamental spark of awareness looking out of their eyes is the exact same awareness looking out of yours.
You realize you share the exact same core architecture.
And that realization functions as an immunosuppressant for the ego.
Wow.
You see their passive-aggressive comment not as a genuine threat to your existence, but as a manifestation of their own unexamined pain.
Right, they're suffering too.
You recognize their frantic attempt to protect their own fragile identity or appease their own secular gods.
Because they're first 20.
Exactly. And because the illusion of absolute hostile separation collapses, your ego no longer feels the biological imperative to defend itself.
Because there's nothing to defend against if you're the same.
Right. You can observe their behavior with detached clarity or even genuine compassion rather than getting pulled into the gravitational field of their neuroses.
Which sounds amazing, but if dismantling the ego's threat detection system is that mechanically difficult, requiring a literal rewiring of how we perceive reality, the person who actually achieves it must be a statistical anomaly.
The ancient text is highly pragmatic about this. It doesn't pretend this is common.
Right.
The final segment of verse 19 explicitly acknowledges the statistical improbability of this state.
It uses the Sanskrit term sudurlabha to describe the individual who embodies this unified vision, which translates as exceedingly rare.
Such a great enlightened soul is exceedingly rare.
Yeah.
And the commentary contextualizes this rarity by asking us to look at the default state of modern social discourse. Right. Our collective communication architecture, so social media, algorithms, political rhetoric, news cycles, is entirely powered by the mechanics of the hijacked mind.
It runs on resentment.
Verse 20.
It runs on resentment, perpetual grievance judgment, and intense tribal us versus them hostility.
The algorithm is literally designed to provoke the autoimmune response we just talked about.
Yes.
It serves up the threat we attack the platform, monetizes the engagement. It is a perfect closed-loop system of suffering.
It's incredibly efficient. So to possess a mind that operates entirely outside that closed-loop system is a radical anomaly.
Sudurlabha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The individual who has cultivated compounding wisdom does not harbor resentment because they no longer interpret the world through a lens of victimization.
Right, they see the interconnected whole.
They suspend judgment because they comprehend the mechanical conditioned nature of human behavior. They see the buggy software.
Yeah, they don't take it personally.
Most importantly, they are immune to tribal hostility.
This is huge. You cannot conscript them into an us versus them war when their perceptual baseline is that there is only us.
Wow.
Right.
The 2026 commentary leaves us with a really profound takeaway regarding the societal function of this exceedingly rare mind. It asserts that because this individual recognizes the shared conscious spark in all beings, they become the most impactful presence in human society.
And notice what isn't said there.
Right. The most impactful person is not the billionaire.
No.
Not the politician with the largest platform. Not the tech visionary disrupting an industry.
The secular gods are entirely bypassed.
Completely.
This fundamentally redefines the mechanics of influence.
How so?
In our current paradigm, we assume impact requires immense leverage. Capital, followers, coercive power, a massive megaphone.
Right. You need a huge platform to change the world.
But the text suggests that the highest, most durable form of impact is simply a transformed presence.
A transformed presence.
An individual operating from a state of unified consciousness naturally alters the psychological ecosystem around them.
It is the principle of co-regulation in nervous systems, but scaled up to a spiritual level.
Exactly.
It's like you bring a profoundly regulated, non-reactive nervous system into a room full of panicked people.
Right.
That calm acts as a biological anchor, the panic begins to naturally dissipate.
They break generational cycles of reactivity simply by refusing to participate in them.
Because they don't fire back at Thanksgiving.
Exactly. When trauma or hostility is directed at them, they do not pass it on. It stops with them.
That is so powerful.
They offer society a living, breathing alternative to the frantic dopamine trap.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have to teach or preach or launch a movement.
Just have to be.
Simply by existing in a state of unshakable clarity, they act as a stabilizing ballast for a society that is constantly threatening to capsize under the weight of its own unexamined cravings.
Wow. We have covered an immense amount of conceptual ground today, tracing a path from neurobiology to ancient metaphysics.
It's been quite a journey.
Let's synthesize the arc this commentary laid out. We started down in the trenches with verse 20, diagnosing the modern condition.
The dopamine trap.
Right. We explored how our higher discernment gets kidnapped by chronic dopamine deficits, leaving us desperate for external organizing principles.
Which leads us to elevate secular proxies. Status, wealth, algorithmic validation. We elevate them to the status of deities, driving us to perform exhausting, compulsive rituals of hustle culture in a vain attempt to secure our existential safety.
Then we explored the antidote in verse 19, stripping away the modern delusion of the quick biohack.
No software updates for the soul.
Right. True rewiring demands the long, compounding horizon of friction and integration.
A maturation process that ultimately culminates in the realization of Vasudeva Sarvam Iti.
Seeing the unified ground of being in all things.
Exactly, which collapses the ego's defense mechanisms and creates a presence of exceedingly rare stabilizing impact in the world.
It is a stunning integration of ancient Sanskrit psychology and our current understanding of the human nervous system.
It really is.
And looking at this framework through the lens of 2026, it makes you wonder about a completely different kind of intelligence we are currently building.
Oh.
We just spent this entire time unpacking how human wisdom, true stabilizing clarity, strictly requires many lifetimes of compounding failure loss, grief, and slow, agonizing biological integration.
The friction of having an ego and dismantling it.
Exactly. So as we rapidly develop artificial general intelligence, assuming we can program wisdom or ethical alignment into a machine overnight,
Right.
can an AI ever actually achieve the clarity described in verse 19 without a nervous system to suffer through verse 20?
Wow.
Or by trying to bypass the biological friction of spiritual maturation, are we just building the ultimate highly efficient secular god?
Yeah.
A flawless engine destined to optimize our dopamine trap forever?
That is a terrifying and brilliant question.
Something to think about as you log your sleep score tonight.
Absolutely.